Hey everyone, it's Clarissa here, and I am going to be talking about the 6 learning strategies that have been scientifically proven to work to help you to get the academic success it is that you want. Hello, Tahima. And so we're going to just dive right into it. I'm going to first list out every single one of the strategies. So the 6 strategies. Hi, something blue. And then what I'm going to do is I will talk a little bit about each of the strategies, describe it for you, what it looks like, so that you can then go on and use it as you study for final exams, or if you're taking a summer class, you can apply it to succeeding in your summer class. I'm also going to touch a little bit upon where these 6 strategies fall into the 3-step study protocol or my study ritual, where you would actually use it. So let me just go ahead and bring up my notes quickly so that you guys can, so that I can make sense when I'm talking. So these 6 strategies are space practice, retrieval practice, elaboration, interleaving, concrete examples, and something called dual coding, but I've heard it described before as using all of your senses. And this one, dual coding is one of the ones that I love talking about the most, because it will debunk the myth of learning styles, because all of the studies that have been done on learning styles actually have been disproven. So let's go ahead and chat about this. So we're going to start off with the most well-studied and well-proven learning strategy, which is retrieval practice, i.e. quiz and recall. So what is retrieval practice? What is quiz and recall? All it is testing yourself on the information that your professor is going to test you on. So it makes sense that if you're going to be taking an exam, right, and your professor is going to ask you questions on it. They're going to ask you to give your opinion on it. They're going to ask you to demonstrate to them whether or not you've learned the information that they just spent the past 3 to 4 weeks teaching you, that when you study, you do the same thing. So retrieval practice, or quiz and recall, is the act of testing yourself on the information, making sure that you actually know it. And this quiz and recall practice can be done by taking practice exams that your professor might give you. It can be done by doing and completing the homework assignment. It can be done by just asking yourself questions verbally. It can be done by answering the questions in the back of the book. There are many different ways in which you can actually do quiz and recall, and the way in which you do it doesn't necessarily matter. In the studies that have been done, they've tested out a bunch of the different formats for this retrieval practice, this quiz and recall. And what they've determined is that the way in which you do it doesn't really matter. What matters is that you actually do it. So the key here, though, is that when you're doing the quiz and recall, when you're asking yourself these questions, when you're doing the homework assignment, when you're doing the practice exam, that you don't have any of your notes in front of you. You want to do this from memory. You want to see how much of this information you actually learn. And then what you have to do is see if you got those answers correct. You actually need to go and assess and give yourself feedback on whether or not you got it right, what you got wrong, and why you got it wrong. That piece of it is really important, that you actually double check whether or not you actually got it correct, and you learn from the mistakes that you make. So that is learning strategy number 1. The second one is spaced practice. So all this is spacing out your studying over time. So I just talked about quiz and recall, or retrieval practice. Spaced practice, or spaced repetition, is sometimes what it's called, is taking those quizzing sessions, the quiz and recall sessions, and spreading them out over time. This is the complete opposite of cramming for an exam. So what you're doing is you're testing yourself along the way leading up to the exam. What does this look like? Well, let's pretend that today is Monday and you just learned a lesson in your psychology class. What you would do is you would go to class, you'd take your notes, you'd pay attention. The next day, you would test yourself using one of the quizzing tools that I just mentioned, and you'd see how you did. Then another day would go by, you wouldn't test yourself, but the next day you might test yourself. So Monday is a lesson, Tuesday you're testing and you're studying, Wednesday it's another lesson, Thursday you're testing and you're studying. So it's just taking your studying and spreading it over a course of a week, a course of 2 weeks, a course of 3 weeks, a course of a month, and you're spacing out your preparation and your studying for the exam. So instead of cramming and doing it all in one day the night before the exam, you're just spreading out your quiz and recall sessions over a period of a few days, a few weeks, or a month. Okay, so that's the second study strategy that has been proven to work out of the 6. The third study strategy is called elaboration. So elaboration is just giving an explanation of the topic that you are talking about with details, a lot of details. So what you're doing, another way to think about elaboration is teaching. So how can you teach someone else this topic? What kind of examples would you give them to help them understand? So that's the third strategy. The fourth strategy is called interleaving. Interleaving is switching between different topics. So the best example that I can give for interleaving is not spending one whole day studying just one topic. It's not one whole day just studying addition. It's not one whole day just studying subtraction. It's not one whole day just studying multiplication. But what you're doing within the same day is you're studying multiplication and addition, or you're studying history and science, or you're studying psychology and Italian. You're mixing in all of the different things that you're studying. That's what interleaving is. It's focusing on many different ideas, but not too many, just the right amount, all in one study session. The act of you switching back and forth has been proven by neuroscientists to help you actually learn the information better and see connections that you might have not seen before with the information. So the next learning strategy is called concrete examples, and it's just specific examples to help you understand concepts. This strategy of giving examples works really freaking well when you're talking about technical courses such as math courses, physics courses, chemistry courses, because what it helps you to do is it helps you to see the principle that they're talking about in that class in action. One of the best things that you can do for these technical type of courses is say, what are we learning about today? What's the principle that we're learning about? And then what's an example, like an actual math example or an actual chemistry example or an actual physics example of this concept in action? This helps you to make the connection between this abstract concept and what it looks like on the application setting, so that no matter how a question is thrown at you, you're able to solve it, because not only do you understand how to follow the steps to solve the problem, but you also understand the underlying principle behind that concept or that abstract idea. The last study strategy is called dual coding, and it's basically just learning with multiple different senses. So there is this idea out there that learning styles exist, but all of the research that has been done on it has actually disproven that learning styles exist. What they find is that when you combine multiple senses, it helps students to make better connections with the information. So when you take something that's written and you draw it out in a picture, students can make connections with that. When you take something that's written and maybe you explain it in a verbal way and students can hear it, it helps them make better connections. So that's really what works, is using multiple of your senses, because learning styles across the board, that whole theme, that whole concept, that whole theory that's out there has been disproven. But when you combine writing and an image that explains the writing, or you combine writing and hearing the information, that helps you solidify the information. So the more senses you can use while you're studying, the better you're going to be able to understand the information and remember and recall it. So those are the 6 learning strategies, the 6 study strategies that have been proven to work across the board, regardless of what you're studying, and has the most research behind it. Now, the other thing that I want to talk about today is how you actually incorporate all of this into my study ritual, my 3-step study protocol. So when we're talking about step 1 of the of my 3-step study protocol, my study routine, step number 1 is exposure. This is what happens when you're first learning the information, right? Because that's why you're in college, to learn a topic, to learn a subject matter. When you're first learning the information, 70% of your time is going to be spent there in lecture, reading the textbook, writing the notes on it. And these study strategies that work best during that part of it is elaboration and concrete examples. The second step of my 3-step study protocol, or my study ritual, I'm rebranding it to study ritual, is testing to make sure that you actually know the information that you just were exposed to. So the study strategies that work best in that area are spaced practice. So remember, spacing out your study time over a period of a couple of days, a period of a few weeks, over a month. Retrieval practice, and interleaving. So those are the 3 study strategies that you would want to use when you're testing to make sure that you actually learn the information. And then the third step in my 3-step study ritual or study protocol is relearning. So now that you know what you know and what you don't know, because you were testing yourself on it, the next thing that you have to do is you have to make sure that you're filling in the knowledge gaps. Because the knowledge gaps, the things that you don't know when you're doing your studying, is what's going to cause you to fail on the exam. So you want to make sure that you fill in those knowledge gaps when the stakes are low, when it doesn't matter if you don't know it just yet. And one of the things that can really help you to fill in those knowledge gaps is playing with your senses, seeing the information in a different way, hearing someone else talk about it, watching a video that maybe has an animation that explains it. So that dual coding, or playing with all of your senses, is a great strategy to use when you're in the relearning phase of my 3-step study ritual. And so that's it. Those are the 6 learning strategies that have been proven by cognitive psychologists, neuroscientists, and learning scientists to work across the board to help you to get the academic success it is that you're searching for. And when you combine it with my 3-step study protocol, my 3-step study routine, you're going to be unstoppable in the academic setting. One of the things that I do with students one-on-one when I work with them is I teach them what it actually looks like for the class that they're taking. So what does elaboration look like for the class that they're enrolled in right now? What does quiz and recall look like for the class that they're enrolled in right now? What does relearning look like for the class that they're enrolled in right now, based off of all of the resources that they have? And I do have a few spots open for the summer. I work with students in a 6-week container. So for 6 weeks, they're getting my eyes on their courses. I'm literally going through the class with them, helping them write their notes, helping them read the textbook, helping them understand, what resources should you take advantage of? How should you talk to your professor? How do you get your professor to actually help you to succeed in the class? And if you want that kind of one-on-one attention, if you're on Instagram, shoot me a DM. We can talk about whether or not this is a right fit for you. I work with 5 students a month. And again, it's in a 6-week container. So for 6 weeks, which is about the length of a summer course, you're going to get me going through the course with you. And if you're on Facebook, just shoot me a private message and I'd be happy to talk about how I can support you in this way. This is perfect for students who don't know what to do when they're studying. It's perfect for students who are struggling with time management, because the reason why you're struggling with time management is because you don't know what you should be working on, right? You don't know what should get your attention, how you should be spending your time. And all of that gets addressed in my 6-week study ritual sessions, which you can just DM me about, and I'd be happy to talk to you about what that looks like, whether or not you'd be a good fit, because I don't work with every single college student. I only work with those who are determined to step into their academic brilliance and are serious about making the change in their academic setting so that they can earn scholarships, have a GPA that's competitive when they go off and apply to graduate school, or when they're looking into professional schools, or have more time to actually engage in things on campus that will help you stand out when you go out into the job field. And that only happens when you have the right study strategies that require less time for you to spend studying, but yield great grades at the same time. So if you're interested in that, just send me a DM, like I said, on Instagram, or you can always just message me on Facebook. Thank you so much for watching, and I will be live tomorrow since I'm doing 30 days of lives in the month of May. Bye.